You know a little bit already about us, but would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Andrew Baillie, and I'm profoundly deaf and a BSL first language user. I've got a cochlear implant 4 years ago, and it's improved my hearing, but also communication skills generally as well. But first language BSL. I work here, MMM in Acton, London, um, and also I'm a moulder supervisor. So that's my role. So that's a bit about me.
That's nice to hear. So you are making all the wax figures as well for other Madame Tussauds around the world.
Yes, not just London. It is inclusive of global America, Asia, Australia, Europe, all over really. There's 26 countries, I think, altogether. So we produce work for themselves, and on a yearly basis, we export them. So there is also workshops that we present 1 or 2 times a year. And as I said, I'm the moulder supervisor. I'm responsible for training for junior staff to build them up really with their skills, etc. Provide them with more training, information, etc. Making sure that the production is of a certain quality. And I'm also responsible for timetabling all the work, the scheduling, etc., to make sure everything comes out on time and there's no delays. So I'm responsible for that as well. A third role is basically organising the team, making sure that they work sufficiently successfully together and nobody is left out of the team, but we actually work as team members working together, which I think is really important. And it seems to work well, not just here, but within other regions as well. And so we don't just stop and do no more. We continue, and we also plan people who are coming around visiting, for instance, and we prepare ourselves for that. So we give people specific responsibilities and projects to do so that they can carry on working at their own speed as well.
Wow, that's a lot. That sounds really good. Um, how long are you?
Yes.
Yeah, how long are you already working for Merlin?
Been working here 4.5 years, I beg your pardon, 9.5 years, nearly 10 years. So recently I was promoted to management, line management role because of my long experience really, and I'm used to working from right at the bottom, building myself up. As I said, now I'm supervisor, and I've got my, I feel as though it's my ownership now. I provide, hopefully, I provide the best quality work as possible, and it benefits them when they're using our services. So I kind of feel it's my baby, really.
It's really nice to hear that you really work from bottom to the top. How is it to work as a person with a disability, in your case, deaf, in an attraction?
Um, it is challenging because I'm the only person in this building who is deaf. So there's a lot of communication, face-to-face work, which can present as a barrier. And I'm not saying every hour of the day, but it can be, and it seems to be growing each on a yearly basis, unfortunately. There is a Tenexel, and I feel as though I never give up. I want to continue fighting, breaking down these barriers. And I think we work together as a team as well, as I mentioned earlier, learning from each other. And I think some people are more advanced in their knowledge than others, but I just keep on going with the communication really. And I bring things up with my managers as well. And I also want to take across the message to all of the team that it can be difficult and they can help me and I can help you. So I can help them. And therefore we can work together in overcoming any communication barriers. And so I'm passing on a lot of information to colleagues to make them aware, and perhaps they've never seen a deaf person before, never come across a deaf sign language users, and it may encourage them to introduce themselves to other deaf people in the future. So I'm just trying to encourage them as well to aspire to meet other deaf people as well as just myself and communicate with them as well. As I said, I've been here nearly 10 years now, and it has been a very slow process for this to come about. And I think the first 2 years, it was a real struggle. And I thought, obviously, they were recognizing me, more and more people recognizing me, a British Sign Language user. And I think after the first 2 years, Merlin became more and more deaf aware. The first 2 was very difficult, as I said. And I think now it's improved immensely. And people are recognizing me and deaf people in general, and the deaf community in general, and becoming more and more aware, both here and in society as well. There's more accessibility that's provided these days that seems to go much more smoothly than it did in the past. There doesn't seem to be as many difficulties as there were in the first 2 years.
Yeah. And does this affect as well your daily work sometimes?
Yes, I'd say so. So, for instance, if it's a last minute arrangement for a meeting, it could be a meeting the following day, and an interpreter needs to be booked and brought in. It can be very difficult to get hold of an interpreter last minute. They do need a lot of notice, and so therefore, if an interpreter isn't booked or can't get hold of, I can miss out a lot of information, and therefore I don't have equality for the rest of the people who are present. And sometimes it means that things are delayed for me by 7 days for when an interpreter does turn up, and that can be disappointing. There can be emergency last minute speeches, training events, which again I don't have access to if there's no interpreter. A lot of last minute situations present a lot of challenges for me. And if they can let me know there's a meeting going on the next month, then that gives me sufficient time for an interpreter to be booked, or reserved at least, and then to give them the date and time, etc., of the event taking place. But last minute is a struggle. And everything works at a really fast pace, easy. People don't sit back on their laurels. It does seem to be a lot of meetings, a lot of training, etc. And we just need to think out of the box, really, think of different ways to go about, whether it can be remotely, for instance, remote like we are doing now, can answer some of those last minute issues. That can be beneficial in some ways, but it perhaps creates other problems that we don't face in face-to-face meetings.
And what are the positive sides of your disability during your work?
Well, positively, I think the company, working for this company, I think about 7 years ago, they decided to provide deaf awareness training to colleagues, which was fantastic news for me, for everybody really, to learn about deaf culture, deaf awareness, identity, British Sign Language, teach a little bit of British Sign Language, so they're aware and able to communicate on a basic level with deaf people. And I think I've spoken about this earlier. Some of them have grasped this more than others, perhaps, but I wanted them to have more confidence. So when they do meet deaf people, not just me in the future, they are not resistant and nervous, but feel more confident about it. And I'm hoping that confidence comes through working with the company. A lot of people want to move on to, I think about a few people who want to do more communication skills in British Sign Language and to learn some more, and some haven't. So yes, it's a wide mixture, but altogether, I think that's a very positive approach for the company to make. And also, just to add, now that I've become manager, I'm able to be in a position where anybody who feels frightened, resistant to talk to me or talk to any other deaf people can approach me. I'm very open to that approach. They can either there's a translation system, a digital translation system that can be translated very quickly for me if there's no interpreter around. So there's facilities like that, both technology and also face-to-face, that can overcome these difficulties. And I think since when I started to nearly 10 years now, things have developed positively, and it means I've not had to stay it means I'm able to stay in the same company for a long period of time, which perhaps would not have been the case otherwise.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. How is it to work in a team with colleagues without any disabilities?
Good question. I think sometimes I feel very lonely. It can be very isolating. I know it sounds bad when I say that, but it can happen to me sometimes on a daily basis because a lot of people don't sign or very little sign language. I try and communicate, and it can be very tiring texting all the time. At lunchtime, everybody's talking very, very fast, and I don't know what they're talking about half the time. And I sometimes say, what did you say? And they said, oh, it's okay, we'll tell you later, which isn't quite the same, is it? And that can be a struggle. And other places as well, there's obviously a lot of chatter going on, and I don't exactly know what's being spoken about. So I can feel very isolated, and I perhaps means I focus on my work more so than others do, perhaps, because I've got no communication there. I try and do my best. I try and join in with colleagues, share information, now that I'm particularly at a managerial level. So that's good. I've got 2 colleagues who, as I said previously, were learning sign language, but they can be busy as well, doing other things. And so I can't access them on a daily basis, and I can't take up their space. I've got to give them some space to do other things as well. It's not all just about me. So, but it's part of my life, and I face that on a daily basis, but not just me, other deaf people too.
Besides your function, you are additionally part of the Your Voice Count team. I'm as well a representative for the cluster of Amsterdam. How is to be a representative for your attraction?
I think it's a huge benefit because I personally am the only deaf person in the county, which is good for the teams as well to come together, having meetings and see me present as a deaf person. And I think it's very beneficial for them. I want to make sure that information is provided to the team and information can be shared from one team to another. And therefore, part of that is that I'm showing my face, that they recognize me as a deaf person, and they would perhaps be more prepared when they meet me again in the future, and therefore work together very well, successfully. And therefore we learn from each other, whether that's communication skills, whether that's sign language. It is a challenge for me, as we spoke about earlier, but I keep on persevering. I've got some hearing colleagues who sometimes speak on my behalf sometimes, but I want to get the message out there that there is a deaf community, there is deaf culture, there is me as a deaf person who I'm a face there, and I keep going with that message, and my ultimate aim is that we work together successfully.
It's good to hear that you are really part of the Your Voice Count team, to be really the representative for them. What are your career goals inside Merlin?
Artist or creative manager, I think, director, beg your pardon. At the moment, I'm supervisor, and I do want to take on greater role, higher role, to show my disability should not be a barrier, and also to work very close with larger teams, other people, people I can meet on a daily basis to continue that dialogue with fresh faces, perhaps. Yeah, those are my goals: an artist, a creative director.
What would you like to advise to other persons with a disability to achieve their dream to work in an attraction?
I think to keep a positive mindset, really, to recognize that it is going to be difficult in terms of barriers, and to keep positive and just keep on going and not to give up, and also to be open for people asking for your advice, but also you asking for their advice as well. So not to give up, to constantly show your face when it's needed, and people then start to recognize you, a name to a face, a person perhaps with a disability, and then perhaps they'll become more open to you taking part in other things. I think you need to also perhaps not jump too far ahead of yourselves, but to take it one step at a time. But at the same time, as I said, not to give up, to continue with your training. Don't have the attitude of I'm deaf, I'm disabled, therefore I can't achieve. You can achieve, and with a very good company like where we are at the moment, that will help you achieve. And you just need to have that positive mindset to set yourself goals, small goals, large goals. And also you can have, with that positive mindset, you can have an effect upon other people and other colleagues. I think the more people who see this really would be only beneficial, not just for myself, but other people as well. I've been here, as I said, nearly 10 years, and I've seen my role grow and people's experiences grow. And I've seen people perhaps who haven't paid much attention, but at the same time, those who have. And I want to develop all sectors of the business, really, different people, different groups of people with different attitudes and different approaches to this. And I understand there isn't just going to be one formula. And I understand there isn't going to be one viewpoint. There is going to be mixed. There are going to be groups of people who are perhaps more reticent than others. Some perhaps will only get to a certain stage in their knowledge and their learning in this field, but there's others who want to take it even further. So there are different groups of people, but I think this work that we're doing now would be very beneficial to meet all those needs. I would normally say that I would recommend people to register on a British Sign Language course. It can be online. It can be very basic. It can be very quick. It can be very short. It's something that they can use on a daily basis. Massive benefits to companies that people work for, and also individually as well. They can learn things like colours, numbers, country names, that sort of thing. And I think it will give people the confidence to then approach deaf people, to communicate with people, not to lose any confidence and faith in when they're communicating with people. Really, just to get the message across, to give it a go and not to be frightened and not to feel stupid that they'll make a mistake. All they need to do is ask the deaf person if they would like to communicate, if they do, and perhaps gain advice on how to communicate. They just need to try. I think that's the important thing, and not to give up. Yeah, I think that's the small message I'd put across, is try not to give up.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And also, one good quote is, it says that if sign language is equal, it would mean two people would become friends. Or we will become friends, beg your pardon.
Well, I hope that we can become great friends, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes.